Alright, welcome. You're here for part 2. Let's get straight to the point. So at this point, you've probably watched the first video about why you should collaborate and what's the significance behind those reasons as well. In this video, I'm going to break down the proper way of collaborating. Now, after having done, from what I counted, 48 collaborations, both a combination of paid and unpaid work, I think I kind of had a gist of what the right way is to collaborate and something that really works for me. Again, bear in mind this is the opinion of one person. You might have your own opinions and that's absolutely fine. I really don't care. No, I'm just kidding. I actually care. Comment down below, let me know exactly what you appreciate and what you didn't from this video, and maybe something's aligned and maybe I could learn a thing or two out of, this video as well. So in this video, I'm going to give an example of a photographer and a model for this entire context of how to collaborate properly. The first thing that you want to do is the initial setup and communication around the potential collaboration. So by that means, you want to approach someone to collaborate. Now, in this case, for a model, maybe the photos that I want to take could potentially help out their personal brand. But let's assume for context, you've never really spoken to someone, but you really want to reach out to them, which by all means, I encourage you to do so because again, up until you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no. So the first thing you want to do is send the right message. Now, in terms of how I do that, there's two ways. 99% of the time, I'll just DM them on Instagram. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to take the professional route of emailing them, by all means, you're absolutely fine to do so. The reason as to why I go for the DM, it's quick, it's easy, and there's low barriers to entry about that. So in case they might say no, maybe have 2 or 3 other people that you might want to work with. Some collaborations might involve several vendors, so it might be hard to get specific vendors involved. So make sure you have a list of people that you're ready to work with before you even start the project. When you found these people and sending the right message, you want to outline your intention. So for instance, if I want to shoot with, say, a South Asian model, I want to make sure that in my message, I address the fact that I'm a South Asian portrait photographer. Here's my portfolio. I'd really love to work with you and I'd really love to create content around XYZ. Now you can go into a little bit about the plans in the initial phase. You don't have to go into too much depth, but that could come afterwards. Another thing to bear in mind is you don't want to be too overbearing and send them an essay to read. So I'm trying to keep it a bit short and punchy. For any photographers wondering as to how I reach out to people for collaborations or specifically for models, DM me and I'd be more than happy to send you guys a transcript for what it is that I actually use. That's gotten me to do over 48 collaborations in the past. Now the next stage is the acceptance. Once they've agreed and identified that, okay, cool, you guys might have an overlapping interest, you want to start preparing for the shoot. So before the shoot, it's important to create a mood board. Now I'm not going to go too into depth about how to create a mood board, but you can YouTube all of that. Ideally, it's just having a series of images of what you guys might have in mind to create. And so therefore you might need inspiration for some of those shots, in which case Pinterest is absolutely amazing to go to and find exactly what it is that you want to create once you have a series of different images to reflect that. Now this mood board could reflect everything from color palette to poses to locations to the type of model that you want to what the campaign, if this is for a campaign, is to look like. The mood board basically allows for a discussion of the shoot to happen thoroughly before it actually takes place. Trust me, I'm saying this now, it's so important because when I first started, I didn't really used to plan a mood board. I just used to rock up with my camera and go, oh, okay, cool, we should do this and just hope for what I got. Now that's not wrong, it's really not, but at the same time, it could be better. And if you really want to take your content to the next level, it's about really planning for the actual shot and making sure that the shoot goes according to what all the parties involved have in mind. A point to make in mind is to not overpromise. Be realistic with what you can create as a content creator, depending on if you're a model, if you're a makeup artist, if you're a photographer, it doesn't really matter where you're coming from, to not lead the group down a line of false hope. There's so many times where they've worked with different vendors who have either overpromised and underdelivered, and it just meant that the actual shoot itself didn't really go according to plan. Again, this is just coming from someone who's done this enough times to realize that as much as the excitement is there and you all get really keen to shoot with each other and to do create content, it's about setting clear boundaries of what you can deliver on. If there's something in your field that you know that works really well, say it, because I guarantee you they might not know what it is. For instance, I might not know anything about makeup, and so therefore a makeup artist would probably feel adequate enough to go, by the way, I would just suggest this. Now sometimes when it comes to collaborations, there could be a cost involved as well, so you might want to address the cost involved for this as well and maybe collectively split that if that's the case. For instance, some collaborations that I've done requires you to shoot on a location that you actually have to pay for. Now if it's worth the actual investment and if it's worth the time of everyone involved, then you may as well do it. But research around if there's something involved for costing. Sometimes some locations need a permit, so you might need permission to actually shoot there, in which case you also might want to split the cost for that as well. At all point in times, be professional. You want to make sure that you're giving the exact exact same amount of intent and value and energy and effort into this entire shoot as everybody else, because I guarantee you everyone wants the same objective. So you want to rock up with the biggest professionalism on the day and show them that you're really there to take part in a project that can benefit everyone. Now for the shoot itself, you've done all the pre-planning, you've done all the actual cost investments, you've done exactly what the project is, you've done all the networking that you need to do prior hand, and it's now come to the shoot day. Whatever time you've said to be there and start the shoot time, rock up an hour earlier. The reason as to why I say this is just for unexpected things that could go wrong along the way. You never really know. And because this has perhaps been, a while in the planning, you want to make sure that you take as much opportunity as you can to prevent any delays as possible. So rocking up an hour earlier is going to do that. Sometimes for some vendors, you might want to bring a friend. Now the friend could be there just for moral support if you're nervous, or they could be there as a helping hand. Sometimes I've had photographers reach out to me, say, I really want to learn from you, and I might invite them along to some of the collaborations. They could actually help me out. Plus they could actually learn a thing or two whilst they're there. Now, when the shoot's actually starting, a very key important part to keep in mind is to not overstep. Now, this one does get really blurry, and I see it time and time again where some vendors start controlling or really influencing exactly what they want and start, putting this expectation to go, oh, by the way, could you do this, and can you do this, and maybe can you shoot that way, could you do this, or could you apply this, or could you do something like that. The point that I'm trying to make is that you're really there to show them what you can do. So make sure you can do that by telling them, by the way, I got this, in the most nicest way. And the same thing goes for you, is as a photographer or as a vendor, let that person who has the expertise in their field create or do or execute based on what they believe is appropriate. Now, understandably, you want to get all of this discussion out before their actual moment comes on the day. So in that case, try and avoid having these last minute changes, but also bear in mind that there could be room for flexibility and be, adaptive to your environment if there is something that needs to change. I've been in situations before where I've basically been micromanaged, and I'm not saying that that's bad, I'm just saying that I didn't have that creative freedom that I thought I could have. Now that's okay if you're identifying that this person is, someone who really needs to be present on shoot day, needs exactly what they want, and shows you exactly how they want you to do that stuff. And if that's an understanding that's already taken place, then that's fine. But in situations where you go, hey, I got this and I can do this based on what I believe you want, let me, execute, then it's important that you stand your ground. But do it in a way where you're not stepping on other people's toes as well. A pro tip that's really great is to prioritize and normalize healthy feedback. Now this goes for everyone involved, not just assuming that there's a model for them, but also for the same vendors working on the same project. You want to encourage feedback because you want to make sure that at any point in time when you guys are working on a project together, all of your interests align. One of the biggest things that I always do every single time I shoot with any model is to check in. Now, checking in basically means a couple of things. One, are they comfortable? But also number two is what they're expecting from a photographer also being delivered. And now I encourage this line of communication with everyone involved on the day, because at no point do you want to walk away from that entire environment and go, I feel upset because someone didn't check in with me, or maybe feel guilty for not checking in with somebody else. So make sure you normalize feedback and encourage a healthy line of communication at every single point in time in the shoot. Again, remember what I said about professionalism? This is how you show it. Now, if you're a model watching this and at some point you're curious to know what it's like to be on the other end as a photographer, the best way that we can work is by guiding you in terms of what we're after. But maybe you're an experienced model, so therefore it becomes the other way where you need to guide the photographer. It's totally normal and okay if some vendors, if some people on this collaboration are more experienced than others, therefore they can speak up and guide and, really shift the project along to where it needs to be. That's fine. However, yes, it does become a blurry line sometimes when some vendors overpower the entire collaboration and maybe become very influential to the extent where it's hard to have creative flair or freedom. Now, after the shoot, you want to make sure that you express your gratitude and thank every vendor involved for doing a great job. Sometimes we've all gone out for dinner, sometimes we've gone out for drinks, or we've maybe just gone back to someone's house and talked about how the shoot went and what we really liked and what we could have done differently. Now, as a photographer, you're left with the last part of the actual collaboration, which is to edit and deliver the images. In that time, again, it's about doing it in a timely manner. Now, as a wedding photographer, I was also swamped with weddings at the same time, so sometimes it becomes hard to prioritize, certain gigs or certain collaborations. The importance here is to be absolutely honest with your expected timeline of delivery. If I shot a collab, I'm not going to tell the collab person the next day that they're going to get the images. I might generally say it's going to take about 2 or 3 weeks. So set a realistic understanding for when those photos will be delivered to the actual clients or to everybody else involved for the actual collaboration. And finally, when the photos are delivered, check in again. I think checking in is perhaps going to be an ongoing theme at every point in time from the beginning right through the very end. Make sure that when the content is being delivered that everyone's happy with what happened. and that all the vendors are satisfied equally. Generally, the more vendors that are involved, the more harder it is to make sure that everyone's equally satisfied. However, if everything goes according to plan, if everyone plays their own part, this can be done. Most of the times for the collaborations that I've done, it's generally been a South Asian clothing vendor, a model, a hair and makeup artist, a jewelry vendor, and then myself. Pretty much 5 organizations, 5 different parties. Now, and everyone has their own priorities and interests for their own personal brand to make sure that they get the most out of this potential shoot or collaboration. A couple of extra things on collaboration shoot day: bring food. It's always great to have some snacks and, you know, a bit of a break in between and maybe just chill and relax. So at least if there is tension, you guys calm down after it. Music always is a great one. I feel like it just lifts the mood and the environment. So vibe well with great music. Create a playlist if you want, or align with common interests about what people listen to. For me, I love Bollywood music, so it works perfectly well for that matter. I think there's this stigma and understanding about collaborations whereby people think just because someone has a so-and-so XYZ following, they might be really difficult to work with, or they might not say yes, or they might genuinely just reject the idea because we can't offer enough value. Again, I can't stress this enough. The answer will always be no up until you ask. Alright, that's it. If you guys like this video, it's just basically a detailed breakdown, then hit that like button down below, comment, let me know what point you guys really love, and if there's anything that stood out to you for your potential collab. But that's it, guys. I'll try and keep it a little bit more short. I know it's not actually short and punchy, but I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, show us some love, hit that like button down below, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the very next video. Peace.